At the time of recording this video, I am 27 years of age and I've spent over 15 years in the game of rugby union, and today I'm going to be sharing 36 critical lessons that I've learned from my time on the field and coaching hundreds of athletes from the club to international level. These 36 lessons are the mistakes that I've made so that you don't have to. How do I know these work? Well, these are the lessons that I share with all the athletes on board the Strength Solution that allow them to get better results and improve their performances when it matters most. Let's get into the 36 truths I wish I knew when I first started my career. Lesson number 1, rugby is a short-lived career. Make the most out of it. I retired at the ripe old age of 25 after a conversation I had with my head coach who said, "You can't be half pregnant. You're either in or you're out." And for me, I wasn't taking my rugby as serious as I needed to be. I was pushing other things that took away from my ability to perform on the pitch, and it showed week in, week out. Remember, every single set, every single rep, every single match is an opportunity to put your best foot forward, and you don't know when your last will come. So make the most out of it. Throw yourself into things head first and realize that you've got a finite amount of time playing this sport. You want to make the most out of it. Lesson number 2, you enjoy your rugby most when you're at your best. Ask anyone that's fallen out of love with the game, they'll probably give you a similar answer. They don't feel like themselves anymore. Their body can no longer keep up with what their brain is telling them to do, and when your physical ability fades, so does the fun. But when you're fit, you're fast, you're strong, you're powerful, and you're able to impact games, you enjoy it. And that is why physical prep enhances your rugby experience tenfold. Lesson number 3, nothing does nothing. I speak with hundreds of athletes every single year, and the ones that go on to achieve the things that they set out to do, and the ones that don't, they actually put the work in. Nothing gets nothing. So if you want to step up your performances, you need to put the work in. Lesson number 4, keep the goal the goal. The biggest killer of progress is distraction. I see it with athletes time and time again, and I fell into this camp myself. Every single week, I would be changing my program. There would be a new shiny training method out there. Instagram would push something else, and I would get that shiny object syndrome. I would want to jump on it. I'd want to try it. I'd want to be on the new best thing. But what you need to realize is that developing physical qualities requires saturation, and that doesn't happen after a week. That happens after you run a training program. Lesson number 5, most athletes overestimate how much they can get done in a month, but underestimate how much they can get done in a year. High performance takes time, and at the Strength Solution, we follow the 3x3 framework, which is a 5-step framework that you need to master if you want to step up. Step 1 is you need to be able to hit 3 hours a week for a week. You then need to be able to dedicate 3 hours a week for a month. You then need to dedicate 3 hours a week for 3 months. You then need to dedicate 3 hours a week for all 3 parts of the season, and then you need to dedicate 3 hours a week for 3 years. If you can do that, you will become completely unrecognizable as a player. Lesson number 6, most rugby players can go a hell of a lot further in their career and play at a higher standard if they become a physically dominant freak. Yes, there is a level of skill that is needed to play the sport of rugby, but if you're a physical freak, you can get away with not being the most skillful if you hit harder. Time and time again, I've seen rugby players with a lack of skill step up and play at higher standards because they moved better, hit harder, and lasted the demands of the 80-minute game. Rugby is a physical game. Build the body that matches the demands for it. Lesson number 7, if you're not assessing, you're guessing. Rugby is a very complex game with a variety of different athletic demands. You need to be strong, you need to be fast, you need to be powerful, and you need to be fit. So if you don't understand exactly which one of those capacities is holding you back, you're just going to be guessing what your next program needs to be. High performance isn't guesswork. It doesn't happen by chance. You should know exactly what your biggest limiting factor is right now, and your program should reflect, plug in that deficit so you can improve your performances on the pitch. Lesson number 8, feelings aren't facts. Yes, there is a subjective element to improving your performances, and we want you to feel fitter, but just because you feel fitter, it doesn't necessarily mean your aerobic capacity has improved. There should be key metrics that you are tracking throughout your journey to ensure that you are making that progress and actually developing the underlying physical capacity, not kidding yourself into thinking you've made progress. Lesson number 9, What gets measured gets managed. This was a lesson that I learned very recently, actually, and I learned it the hard way, quite sadly. I was going through my own fat loss journey and I wanted to improve my body composition, and I had two main metrics I was tracking. Number one, body weight. Number two, body fat using an in-body scale. And I slipped on the in-body readings. I was looking at the body weight and it was coming down, I thought I was doing the right things. 3 months later, I stepped on that body and my body weight had dropped. Yes, that metric had improved, but at the expense of everything else. I had dropped 5 kilos, my body fat percentage hadn't changed, and I'd lost so much muscle mass. If I'd have keeping a tab on that metric, I know for a fact that fat loss journey for those 3 months would have looked completely different. What gets measured gets managed, and you need to make sure that you are tracking the data. Lesson number 10, strength is the mother of all qualities. There is a reason why I've named my business The Strength Solution, because strength is the physical capacity that has a positive influence on all the others. If you want to run faster, getting stronger will help. If you want to become more conditioned, getting stronger will help. If you want to be more powerful, getting stronger will help. Having a relative baseline level of strength at play is going to be one of the biggest performance enhancers that you can have for your rugby career. And then leading on from that, lesson number 11, getting strong solves all the problems being weak creates, and then you're left with problems strong can't solve. And what I mean by that is, yes, getting strong in the early days of your athletic development will help speed, it will help power, but there is a level of strength that is deemed sufficient for athletic performance, and that is roughly 1.8 to 2 times your body weight. Anything after that, and you may notice that you're getting diminishing returns in that because it's taken away from developing all the other qualities. I learned this the hard way. I squatted 260 kilos, and probably getting up to that point was relatively easy in my journey, but adding an extra 12.5 kilos to that, which is what I did over 6 months, I trained super hard for it, took away from my ability to sprint, it took away from my ability to jump, it took away from my ability to play the sport of rugby, which meant that getting strong didn't actually further my progress, it just hindered it. So remember that. Lesson number 12, the big three is dead. Now, I know there may be some coaches that get in arms over that, and if you told me I'd be saying this statement 5 years ago, I would have laughed you out the room, because I thought the squat, the bench, and the deadlift were the only things that you needed to, if you wanted to become strong. While yes, that may work for powerlifting, what we need to realize is strength is angle specific. So if you want strength that is going to transfer over onto the pitch, you need to train a variety of different angles, and that is why we use the Rugby 10. We look at the snatch, we look at the clean, the front squat, the back squat, the deadlift. We look at the overhead press, the incline press, the bench press, the dip, and the chin up. We develop those exercises, and that is what builds true rugby strength over as many different angles as possible. Lesson number 13, optimizing your strength ratios is key, because a balanced strength profile equals a resilient athlete that can tolerate the demands of a rugby game. My background was powerlifting, like I said, and my back squat, my bench press, and my deadlift far outweighed all the other exercises in the Rugby 10. And it was only when I started bringing up my incline press to 91% of my best bench press, my front squat within 85% of my back squat, did I notice carryover into improvements on the pitch. Lesson number 14, the angles above help the angles below. So when I decided to bin the big three and focus on the Rugby 10 and drive my incline press number up, because that was my weak link in the chain, my bench press came up with that, and that was because I was fixing weak links. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So if you're neglecting certain angles, it could lead to a plateau in the bench press. So not only do you notice progress across a wider range of angles, you probably notice progress in the ones that you care most about. And the same applies for the front squat to the back squat. Improving your front squat will have a direct carryover to the back squat. It doesn't work the other way around. Lesson number 15, if it's important, it never leaves the program. This is one of the mistakes that I used to make time and time again. As soon as the off season would come, I would never get out onto the pitch to do any speed conditioning. I would just focus on strength and size, and then I would come back to preseason feeling like a slug. Every single program that you should write, every single phase of the year should have a form of speed work, it should have a form of explosive power work, it should have a form of strength work, and it should have a form of conditioning work. The only difference from program to program is the emphasis on which quality you are developing, but you never neglect any single quality. Lesson number 16, most rugby players overestimate the amount of body weight they need. You look at the pro game, you've got some people that are clocking 150 kilos and some backs that are 115 kilos. What you've got to realize is those players are genetic anomalies and they probably have a lot more muscle mass than you are. So that body weight is actually functional. Just adding body weight for the sake of body weight doesn't improve your performance as a rugby player. You want to be improving functional mass. Take it from someone that sat at 125 kilos for so long because I saw what the pros did and I thought I had to copy the elite front row. But in reality, I was playing better rugby when I was 110 kilos because I was fitter, because I didn't have to carry as much fat around. I was faster because I didn't have to carry as much fat around. And because of those things, I was able to impact the scrum better because my strength didn't change either because I wasn't just carrying shit weight. And following on from that, lesson number 17 is the best speed, power, and conditioning program is more often than not a nutritional intervention. What you need to realize is fat doesn't fly. And like I said, a lot of the time, the reason why these players are carrying unnecessary body weight is yes, they see it in the pro game, but it's a way to justify their shitty eating habits so they can continue eating like a child. Get a proper nutrition program in place and your performance will skyrocket. Lesson number 18, the best workout is the one that you are prepared for. In this day and age with social media, everyone is searching for that quick fix, that silver bullet, that magic potion, that one workout that is going to completely change the game for them. But what you need to realize is that methods are many, principles are few. A lot of these workouts that you will see that become popular are just dressing up a underlying principle in a different way that looks fancy for that flavor of the month. You need to make sure that you've just got a consistent long-term program that applies the right stimulus at the right time, and that comes not from what time of the month it is or what influencer says. That comes from your body's capacity to tolerate the stimulus that you're asking it. Lesson number 19, max velocity sprints matters for everyone. Yes, even you front row, and I am speaking to my former self here who avoided speed training like the plague because I thought, well, I'm a front row. My performance isn't dictated by how fast I am. It's dictated by how well I can scrummage and all of the above. Well, what I failed to realize was that max velocity sprints are the key to preventing hamstring strains. Hamstring strains, more often than not, don't come from sprinting too much. They come from sprinting not enough and asking your body to do something that it's not adapted to. Lesson number 20 is something that I hear a lot of people saying. It's a bit of a follow-on. I don't need to train speed. I sprint in games. That is wrong. Game sprinting is reactive, inconsistent, and too low volume, and it is why research shows positive improvements in top-end speed with a 4-week sprint program, even though you're sprinting your games, because you need designated sprint training if you're going to A, make sure that we're preventing injuries, but B, making sure that we're actually getting faster. Lesson number 21, sprinting is the most potent form of plyometrics. I know when it comes to programming your speed and power, a lot of coaches may say that jump volume needs to be here, sprint volume needs to be here, but what you need to realize is both of these impact each other, so you need to take that into account when building and designing a speed and power program. Lesson number 22, don't chase tired, chase a stimulus. A lot of people confuse activity with accomplishment. The goal of any training program isn't to cram as much work in as possible. It's to get the positive adaptation off the back and adapt to that stimulus. So make sure that your program is designed to do that, not just work you for the sake of work. Lesson number 23, sport specificity isn't found in the exercises, it's found in the qualities that you need to develop. A lot of the time, people will start to try and recreate movements that they do on the pitch in the gym and achieve a whole lot of nothing. The gym is for developing the general qualities that underpin athleticism, and they are best developed in a very, very specific way. And I can promise you, it is not pretending to line out lift some cable just because that looks like the movement that you'll do in your sport. Lesson number 24, the best improvements that you will ever make with your rugby are when you're on the pitch. All the gym work in the world does not matter if you cannot play the sport of rugby. Yes, having very, very good athletic ability is a good foundation to becoming a good rugby player, but if you lack the skill of the sport itself, you're always going to be limited. So make sure that your minutes are high. You are playing week in, week out. You are building that consistency. You're getting good coaching there, even if it's at a lower level, to get more minutes. That may be more beneficial for your development. Lesson number 25, if you're not playing many minutes throughout the course of a season, guess what? You don't need to treat yourself like an in-season player. This was one of the biggest mistakes that I made in my career. There's a running joke at Eberville that I was one of the longest standing players with the fewest games, and I always used to treat every season as if I was an in-season, but I was getting maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes off the bench every other week, and I just limited the amount of development that I could make as an athlete purely because I was being cautious because I didn't want to be fatigued on the weekend. But I was playing 5, 10 minutes. So make sure that if you are not consistently playing 80 minutes in the match day squad, your training is ramped up because that match is no longer the most stressful thing. You can drive more stress elsewhere. Lesson number 26, the minimum effective dose is a lie. Yes, it may be enough to stimulate a change in a certain physical quality, right? You may be able to get away with developing your speed with 3 top-end sprints, but what you need to realize is if you're a winger, you may be asking yourself to do 15, 20, 25 of those in a single match if it is a fast-paced game. And if you don't train your body to be able to tolerate that, guess what? You're not going to be robust enough to play the sport. So while the minimum effective dose to develop a quality is one thing, you need to be focusing on the minimum effective dose to keep you robust for your sport if you want to become injury-free and step up your performances. Lesson number 27, there is a perfect training split for athletes, and it is the HYO Method. This training split allows you to group high CNS activities together and low CNS activities together to balance fatigue, manage recovery, and improve the adaptations that you get. And this way, you can make sure that you're fresh when it matters most for your performance. Lesson number 28, exercise selection is the best form of load management. If your leg day looks like a back squat, an RDL, a hack squat, a heavy hip thrust, some very, very heavy leg extensions or a leg press, all those exercises have a very high load ability, which means a massive recovery cost. If you was to swap some of those out for some lower load ability exercises, maybe turning your back squat to a front squat, that hack squat to a rear foot elevated split squat, maybe changing the constraints of an exercise to slow the tempo down. That is going to be one of the best ways you can reduce the total stress from a session and allow you to feel fresh through a full training week. Lesson number 29, conditioning is more than just the energy system. What you need to realize is that conditioning and the definition of that is bringing something to its fit state for use. And what you need to realize is, yes, the aerobic system and the anaerobic system is part of that, but the tissues involved are the things that are most important. You need to prep your Achilles to be able to tolerate the amount of sprint volume that you're doing. Your knees, exactly the same. Your shoulders, the contacts. That is what proper conditioning is, and that balances in alongside your energy system work. Lesson number 30, there is no such thing as an accessory for an athlete. Yes, there are going to be tier 1 KPI driver exercises, which are going to be your big rocks and your bang for your buck. But what you need to realize is you're not a powerlifter. Your sport isn't the movement in the gym itself. Your sport just requires you to display lower body force through as many different patterns as possible. And you need to make sure that you're keeping all those tissues healthy if you want to be robust. So you need to make sure that you are bringing the same level of effort and intent that you do to your main lift than you do your accessories. Lesson number 31, arm training is perfect for robustness. A lot of the time people look to lower load remedial exercise for the shoulder, like external rotations, things like that. What you need to realize is the bicep and the tricep both have attachment points that run across the shoulder, which means they are a perfect piece of the puzzle to making sure that you have healthy shoulders. You need to train your arm through a variety of different angles with your arm by the side, overhead, in front and behind the body if you want to keep your shoulders healthy, and the best way to do that is through arm training. Lesson number 32, injuries are the perfect time to level up. Take it from someone that has spent seasons on the sideline. I've had pec surgery, I've had ankle surgery, I've had hamstring tears. Every single time I've come back as a better athlete because I've done the work on the other areas of my body and the other limiting factors that I had when it came to my rugby performance. What you need to realize is just because you're injured right now in a specific body part doesn't mean the rest of your body is injured. So treat an injury as an off season, and we know that's the perfect time to develop as an athlete. Lesson number 33, Olympic lifting is the perfect form of power training for rugby players. While some coaches may sit and argue that trap bar jumps provide the same stimulus, they may do from a pure power output standpoint, but what you need to realize is there are a lot of subjective elements to the snatch, clean and jerk that you do not get with the trap bar jumps. Learning to drop your center of mass to gain better leverage against an external body is something that carries over into the sport itself. Learning to decelerate a weight and yield forces in a matter of milliseconds from a wide range of joint angles makes it a lot more useful to rugby players than purely trap bar jumps. Lesson number 34, there's a difference between being physical and having physicality. This was a quote that I heard from my Wales in the 20s coach the other day, and it stuck with me because a lot of athletes can develop the physical aspect, the physical output. They can get stronger, they can get fitter, they can get faster, but they lack that aggression to be able to turn that into physicality on the pitch. And one of the prime examples of this was Zach Mercer in my under 20s campaign. His stat sheet was through the roof. Now, apparently, he wasn't notoriously known for having the best gym lifts, but he made something like 44 tackles and basically won man of the match for his team and dominated. And that is because he had that level of aggression that allowed him to flick the switch and actually put his physical capacity to use on the pitch. Lesson number 35, the biggest performance enhancer that you can have for your training is a solid training partner or group of people that you train with. The best progress that I have ever made is when I've surrounded myself by people that are on a similar level, chasing a similar journey, and pushing each other to be the very best. I created a gym in my basement purely for this reason, because I could get all my friends who were on a similar level to come and compete, and every single kilo we fought for, and we had a belt on the wall for squat, bench and deadlift at the time, and the record holder got to take the belt. And that was one of the things that drove so much progress when it came to my training. The final lesson, number 36, remember, there is more to rugby than what happens on the pitch. Some of the best memories that I have made that will live with me forever have been on rugby tours. They've been in the changing room. They've been in the clubhouse after the match. And that is what it's about. It's about coming together as a squad and sharing some very, very good stories and having a good laugh and drinking a few beers along the way. And final tip, remember, learn an initiation song, learn it well. Please do not be the guy like me that mumbles his way through it. Have a song, nail it, sing it with pride, and enjoy rugby for everything that it has to offer. If any of those 36 lessons hit home and you're still trying to piece this thing together on your own, maybe it's time to stop guessing. I built a system that brings all these lessons into one place. It is not just a training program. It is about being part of a team. Inside the academy, you'll be able to train like a pro and hold yourself to a higher standard and surround yourself with a group of people that are all doing the same. So if you're ready to stop wasting time and start maximizing this off season, head to the description, hit the link below to join the waitlist for the academy to hear how you can secure your spot when the doors open. And thanks for tuning into this one. I'll catch you in the next one.